Hello and welcome to Julie Hall Designs. Today I'm going to share with you how I use the Janome Digitizer product to create magnificent cross-stitch designs that we can stitch out with our embroidery machine. Now, whilst I'm using the Janome Digitizer software, it is intrinsically similar because they are made by the same people as Wilcom, Hatch and Bernina embroidery software. Having said that, you can also do exactly the same thing with the software that you personally have by following the same steps, but doing it on your software. So the first thing I'm going to do is come through and get some artwork to digitize. And I want to come through and create this gorgeous little sleepy time monkey. And what I'm doing, and I'll do that again, to shrink the size of my monkey, you need to come up to one of the corners and drag that picture in. And I want to make sure, I want to drag from both sides, so I'm holding down the shift key and I want the width of that to be 130 millimeters because I want the design to be able to go into the basic 5x7 hoop. The other thing that I want to do is then lock the design onto the background of my hoop here so that I cannot accidentally move it whilst I'm digitizing. And just by right mouse clicking on the image and selecting lock, locks that image. And you can see that it's locked when you're in the resequencing panel, and there is a little lock over there. To zoom in on my design, I'm going to come through and I could choose the zoom in and out. Personally, I like Z and Shift Z buttons to do that. What I then need to select is that I'm going to be doing manual digitizing. So we choose the digitize panel from our toolboxes. And I'm going to digitize a closed shape. But before we start that, I just want to talk to you about how I go at a design. If I look at the design here, I'm looking at it as layers, and I'm looking at it as what layer sits on top of the others. So for instance, when I digitize this design, I'm going to digitize the tree bark here, or the tree branch. I'm then going to digitize the leaves before moving on to the monkey. So I'm going to select my closed shape, and from the stitch type, I'm going to select cross stitch. Janome Digitizer sets the cross stitch at 12.7 stitches per inch. And it sets it at a full cross, and that is absolutely fine for what I'm doing, so I don't play too much with that. The other thing that I need to do is I need to choose what color I'm going to use, and I'm going to use a dark brown. Now, I am a little bit blind, so I am going to zoom in, making sure that my fill is selected. I can then come through, and remember, it is left mouse click for straight lines and right mouse click for curved lines. And what I'm attempting to do is sit somewhere between half and the outer edge of the artwork. And that is your first set of crosses. I'm then going to come through and do the same thing on that design, on that part of the tree branch. Okay, so we've now got a tree branch. The next thing I want to do is my leaves. And what I notice on my leaves here is that they are two different types of green. So I've got a pale green and a slightly darker green. I just want to come through, and for my pale green, I'm going to choose color 67, just because it's one of my favorite colors to play with and it always looks good on the design. And again, I'm going to come around the design digitizing the outer line, and I can already see that I've made a mistake there. When you do make a mistake, we just select the backwards button. And the mistake that I made was the pale green goes in that section. Now, I want to keep my colours as close together as possible, so I'm going to do the other colours that require the pale green as well. And what I'm doing here when I'm matching it up with another set of crosses is I'm looking to make sure that the crosses remain full at each level. And I'll show you what I mean by that as we get to editing our design. So as you can see here, just as there is a close, there's a full cross there, we've got a full cross on this side as well, so that looks set. And our last of the pale green, so that's our first colour done. I now want to switch up to a slightly darker green, and I'm going to choose colour 21 for that. And I'm going to continue on digitizing these leaves. So we force our object to complete, and what we have now is those two different colors all coming through. Now, what I'm going to do is get rid of the background for a moment, and to do that, I just click on the D button. You can do the same thing by selecting Show and Bitmap Artwork. And what I want to be seeing here is to make sure that there are full crosses all the way around our outline where those two colors match up. And that's exactly what we've got there, so that's great. I know that I've never managed to get through a design without having at least some editing, so I am not worried that at some point I will be able to show you exactly how we edit a design when that doesn't happen naturally. Once again, if you ever click in a place where you don't think you should, just click on the backwards button to get rid of that nodule. And the same thing, so I'm coming along here looking to make sure that at each stage we are dealing with full crosses. And what you can see here, this is exactly what I was hoping would happen. So you can see here that there would be a break in our cross stitch. And what we need to do is edit that by going into the reshape option and just gently and infinitesimally reshaping that until we get full crosses across the entire shape. Now at this stage I want to make sure that I am saving my design, and I'm just saving this one and naming it monkey, because we really do not want the design to or the computer to crash and us to lose the work that we've done. Okay, so we're going to continue on from here, and I'm going to stitch the darker shadow on the monkey's tail. So I choose my Digitizer closed shape, and once again, because if this here is meeting up, I want to make sure that that all looks good. And again, just here, that's all looking great. One of the great things about cross stitch is that you don't have to worry about direction. So I can digitize the flank of the monkey as well as the tail all in one large block, because it is about the crosses, not about giving texture to the monkey design. So let me come through here. And once again, what I'm doing is making sure that those crosses line up. Okay, so now we've got the shadow done. I'm going to come through and create the rest of the monkey. I'm going to start with his tail. I don't know why I'm assuming it's a he. And I'm betting I'm going to have some editing to do once we get this tail done. So we want to come through, and that is all looking good there. But what I'm hoping you can see is that we've got a nice big issue just there. And you can choose which piece you want to draw up further. For instance, I want to draw up the shadow more than I want to draw up that first colour. And that looks much better. We just need to make sure that fixing that one thing didn't unfix anything else, if you even want to call unfix a word. And then I'm going to continue on cross stitching the rest of my monkey's body. Okay, so that is the basics of our digitized monkey. Now what I do have to do is, you can see here that I've made his face, and I need to cut out the area where we are going to place his nose. To do that, while we're in our digitized toolbox, we need to come down and select digitize holes, and from there I can come through and create a hole for the nose, and then I can select a palish pink colour and fill that nose in. Now, the nose is one of those ones that always, as soon as you start cutting, there is always extra pull and extra cutting to be done around the design. So if I want to reshape, I just need to make sure I've got the monkey's face selected, so that I can pull that in a little bit. Okay, so this is my cross-stitch monkey, and at the moment he looks kind of plain and average. And what really gives a cross-stitch design detail is in the outlining. So we need to come through again on our digitize toolbox, and we want to digitize an open shape, and I want to use a triple run. Now I've set my triple run at 2.5 millimeters. That's just my standard triple run length that I like to use. And I'm going to start out once again using our layering theory by working on our wooden tree branch. So I want to come along, and this is where you can start to manipulate a little bit and deviate from the picture to where the crosses are sitting. I'm then going to move over to my tree branch, and now from the olden days when we didn't have thread cutters, I am still used to creating a single run stitch, which will take me from one part of the design to the other, but I only ever do that when it's going to be covered up with a proper triple stitch. And so what you can see here is I am adding definition, and remember we are playing with mere millimeters. So don't get too bogged down in the details, because as you will see, and mind you, that was a really ugly little curve there that I took. As you will see, the thread is thick enough to hide some of those tiny little bits. So what I'm not doing here, you can see that the actual shape finishes out here, but my cross stitches don't. So I am working to where the stitches are laying more than I'm working to where the shape is laying. Hopefully that makes sense. And because I need to do some back and forth here, and I'm just looking at how much I need to do. I'm going to change to a single run line and come and get this line here. Now if you wanted a thicker line, you could also use the back stitch line. I don't know, I guess there's not a great reason why I use the triple run. It's just what I have been, it's what I've always used, I guess. And okay, so you can already see that those leaves now have a lot more definition in them. They're starting to look cute. Imagine how gorgeous our little monkey friend is going to be once we finish him. And when I'm looking for where to start, I'm looking for where am I going to do the least amount of backtracking. And I am thinking that I'm going to start here on my little friend monkey, on the back just after the ear. Now, I've done that one, a triple line. I'm going to come along with a single line to the end of the tail so that then I can continue on in one smooth move. Cross-stitch designs are brilliant. I am loving that you don't have to stitch them out on Aida cloth. And look, personally, I find stitching the cross-stitch designs out onto Aida cloth really frustrating because it is so rare that you can line the darn thing up to get a perfect line. Now, you can see here that I am coming over that set of single stitching and then just continuing down the monkey's flank. So I prefer using either a even weave linen, or you could be using a sorry, I'm thinking on my feet here. Look, 100% cotton is absolutely fine and is something that I would generally use myself. I've done cross stitches on little sloppy joes when the kids were little that always end up looking cute. And once again, you can see me doing here, coming back and forth with a single stitch and then a triple stitch. And what that does is it saves the needle from having to jump. And what I want is a smooth experience for whoever is stitching out the designs. That is my goal. It is always about making a smooth and sexy stitching process. Now, I am going to come back up here to the ear so that later on it is easy to go around, and so that I'm doing the face in one fell swoop. So 2 reasons. Now you did see me just jump there, and that's because I can see here that I've got a little paw imprint coming up, and I wanted to make sure that I hadn't forgotten that on the other paw. But no, it's only highlighted on this one. And triple run. I have seen people who do their cross stitch by coming through and linking up, and I'll do this just to show you in green. So come through and set every different cross as an outline. I'm not a fan of that because I don't think it ends up looking magnificent. But that is totally up to you. If that's the sort of cross stitch you like, you are more than able to do that. Helps if you didn't change the colour, Julie. I always forget to then select to do the digitizing itself. So you'll notice we are not outlining where every single colour change has gone. And that is a deliberate thing as well. Now, I want to come through and show you here. What you'll be able to see is there's a real amount of space here between this cross and this cross. And after we've done this, I'm going to go and do some editing on my beautiful little monkey head. So we're nearly finished digitizing around the monkey's face. Now, to start and stop a set of digitizing, you can either use the Enter key or you can use the spacebar key. When you use the spacebar key, what it does is it sets the stop mark to the other side of, say, the satin stitch. If you were using a satin stitch. Because I'm not, it really doesn't matter, and my left hand sits more comfortably on that space bar. So I wanted to come and reshape some of the head there and just see if I could get a little bit of a better fill. And that is kind of perfect. Okay, much happier with that. So Monkey Man's looking pretty cute, but we need some eyes and we need a few more details on him. So with the same thread colour selected, I'm going to come through and I've still got my triple stitch on, and all I do is stitch that out and then come back across to give a smooth set of stitches across the top of the eyelid. So I'll show you again. What happens if I leave the design like this is that the stitches along here start to look a little chunky. Whereas if I finish off with another row, it just smooths it all and equals everything out. I'm then going to add the mouth detail. Oh, that's looking so cute. And then finally, around the nose. Okay, so this is my little friend the monkey here, and I'm just going to zoom him in as much as I can so that he's still full screen though. And then when I get rid of the shapes, and what the shapes do is the shapes show us the lines. Now, that's fantastic, getting rid of those, because it really shows you what you've got. However, what it shows me is that my colours are not distinctive enough to be making a difference here. So what I'm going to do is say that I want the background to be slightly darker, and then I can have the foreground slightly darker, and the face, and how much nicer is that looking? So you can go through and you can make these edits as you go, because you will be changing your mind as you go along. Now, the last thing I do is, you can see that I don't have my image showing at the moment, but to get rid of the image, I have to have it showing. And then on my resequence toolbar, I need to go through and select to unlock anything that's on there. And from there, I can just delete that picture. I then save my gorgeous monkey, and I'm ready to test stitch him out as one of my sleepy time friends. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you found that interesting. I hope I've taught you something new. If you do have any questions, please feel free to drop me a line at sales@JulieHallDesigns, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Until next time, have a stitching day. Bye.